Stop. You are pointing your gun at a figment of your imagination. Not all black people are monsters. Some of them flower their lips on their mother's cheeks before they leave. Some of them make perfect roommates. Police, tuck away your polymer toys. We all know that you hold in your holsters the kind of heavy metal that really kills kids. I am not against guns. I am just pro second chances. And I have nothing to give these mothers because blood is not a handkerchief.
All right, everybody. Big O here. Welcome you back to another episode of Off the Clock. And really excited because we're mixing it up today. You know, a lot of times it's always about politics, man, and a lot of other stuff that's going on in the city. So really excited to sit down with a creative, an artist, an author, Chelsey Richardson. How are you?
I'm doing okay. How about you?
I'm all right. Welcome to the set.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
No.
Really, really excited.
Real excited to have you here. And Curtis, you can put this up, put me on solo here. The book, All Water Has Perfect Memory, and we're gonna be talking about this here. And I'll be honest with you. So my daughter is a spoken word artist, and so I kind of got into the scene, you know, and poetry and everything else. And at one point, she was like nationally and internationally ranked.
I know who your daughter is.
Do you?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, all right.
Yeah,
well,
I've met your daughter.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
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 Have you ever seen her do any poetry?
I have not.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Listen, man, you know my whole family.
Almost, I think.
All right, but
Feel free to invite me over for dinner or whatever, whenever.
I will. I was checking this out though, and it's like, what you write is deep, and we're gonna get into the book. But first of all, I wanted to kind of give you the floor. Man, tell us a little bit about yourself.
About myself in general?
Well, I mean, you
or
know,
you want to hear?
That's a dangerous question because see, sometimes we'd be like, man, tell us whatever. They'd be like, well, my parents met back in the 50s and this and that and everything else. But I mean, your journey here in specifically to this book, and you know, I mean, in your journey in your world of poetry and spoken word.
Okay, so I actually, the first time that I wrote a really meaningful piece, I was in 7th grade. I remember doing like a poetry like workshop or something like that in class. And I say meaningful because I wrote, but it wasn't actually good writing. It was really bad. It was really, really bad.
It was a start.
It was a start. But it's always been a tool for me to get, I guess, to process information, because as much as I like love to sit down and do what we're doing right now, it's not as natural for me as it is to be able to write down and work through things. And so that's where I kind of started. And then actually Rajni Edens is the person who brought me to my very first poetry slam in Seattle, probably like 20 years ago. And I started performing and getting to know all the like local poets on the scene, and I decided to actually study writing. And so I studied at the University of Washington. I had a professor that told me, you know, you need to understand the English language and the way that it works in order to break the rules. And so that's kind of how I like to see myself, as that kind of author.
Oh, that's dope. You need to understand the rules so you know how to break them.
So you know how to break them.
Right.
Yeah.
It's real interesting. Now, in your bio here, it said Chelsey Richardson's writing is the electrical current that flows between words and the spiritual world. Mm-hmm. Tell me about that.
Well, I was raised fairly religious, but I wouldn't consider myself so religious now. But I think that when I was much younger, it felt like a very spiritual experience, that sometimes things would come to me and I just didn't really necessarily understand where they were coming from. But now as an adult, I think I see it more like examining myself as spiritual, examining the world around me as spiritual. And that's I feel like I'm trying to connect sometimes otherworldly things to what's actually happening now. And I see those two converging.
That's deep. In reading some of your stuff and seeing some of the visuals and everything else, man, this stuff is deep. Like, I don't have no other way to be able to explain it. And then if your poetry ain't deep enough, the Seattle Collegian in writing about your poetry got even deeper.
That's how I felt.
I mean, I was reading this and it was like a whirlpool of emotion that hangs on the edge of everything. But I mean, it's kind of dope that if your poetry is evoking that kind of, passion from the writer over there at the Seattle Collegian when they reviewed you. But it's like your poetry seems like it has a lot of, even the words you use, trauma. It has a lot of passion, sometimes anger. I'm sure there's some other emotions as well, but one of the things that really jumps out about your poetry is, I guess, trauma.
Yeah. That's definitely been a big part of my life. I've had some really traumatic experiences, and I think that together as humans, like during COVID, especially Black folks, people of the global majority, we've been experiencing a lot, traumas on top of traumas, especially during this time, during COVID,
So, was it that was the poetry, what's the word, cathartic? My vocabulary is kind of smaller.
Oh, come on, stop it.
But, I mean, was that helpful for you? It was like, okay, I'm experiencing this trauma, so let me pick up the pen?
That's, when I talked earlier about writing something meaningful, the very first poem that I actually wrote that I think I was able to, it made sense, was a poem that I wrote about my dad when I was 14, when he passed away. He was my dad, right? So obviously that was a traumatic loss for me. But he also was from the South. He was born in 1937, was raised by an enslaved, like a freed slave in Arkansas. And so you can imagine some of that generational trauma was passed down to me. And so I think whatever tools I had that I was given to be able to write, whoever would say, here, write something down, I really started to see it as a way to process some of those things that I was experiencing. And it just happened to be cathartic. It happened to be the thing that helped me. And as I'm learning more about it, I'm seeing that even science, is saying it is helpful to write about traumatic experiences. So it seems like I was doing something for myself, but also offering it to people to be able to read it and feel it too.
What's some of the feedback from everyday people? Now there's professional people who, critics and everything like that. But everyday people who come across your poetry.
Oh, I have people, sometimes, I'll say, please tell me, well, give me some feedback. And I'll have people all of a sudden text me randomly and say, I was crying at the bus stop reading your work. And I'm laughing because it feels good to know at least, well, the feelings are being understood and people are connecting. Not because it's funny, but because it's a lot, I
understand. How do you, or maybe it's your job, maybe it's not though, right? But a lot of times there's some guests that I won't bring on the show, not because I don't want them to be on the show, but because the trauma or the pain that they're experiencing is so real. I know how to pull the wound off but I don't know how to heal them. And especially with it's a lot of these parents who have lost their children there to gun violence and everything else. And we know that there has to be a period of time. Like we'll talk to people early on, but it's usually it's after the funeral and after this and that, and they're in such a state of loss that I know that if we bring them on here and we have them tell us about this and tell us about that we've ripped the scar off, the scab off. But man, we don't have no skills here to be able to put it back. And so usually we end up talking to parents who've suffered a loss many months later when they have the coping skills to be able to talk about it. And of course it's sad, but they know how to put themselves back together, and we do the best that we can with the skills that we have. What is it like though sometimes with poetry when you've hit somebody so deeply because maybe their trauma, everybody's story is a bit different, but maybe their trauma is similar and it brings out so many things, and they've opened the emotion, but like how do they cope with the emotion?
Yeah, I mean, I can't take responsibility for them and their trauma, but I don't want to sound, I don't want this to sound the wrong way. The best way I can say it is sometimes I can give people the words to explain what they've already experienced, and then that in and of itself is sort of healing, because they realize, they can see in me that we make a connection, and it's just by looking at a page or hearing it, and so I caution people, before they read, or I caution them. I do actually started working on a workshop to teach this kind of style of writing. And I do say right away, we're not going to work on real traumatic stuff. If I'm writing with someone, I can't do that because that's too hefty of a job to take on. So this is people hearing my trauma, but I don't know about when it's them. I couldn't think of sitting down with someone, like you explained, people who just lost their child, and even working through that with them, unless I planned on holding them, and being there for a while.
Right. I think maybe even
and that supports.
Right.
Yeah.
I think even maybe another way, or at least another way that I'm now hearing you and hearing that, is that some people might also just find comfort in knowing that they're not alone in the trauma that they went through, and especially the feelings that they felt. I think a lot of people experience different kinds of traumas in their life, but their feelings afterwards, and maybe coming across your work and being able to be like, oh, okay, I wasn't crazy for thinking like that. I wasn't crazy for being angry about something, or I wasn't crazy for being like, you know what, I'm gonna just let that go. And the fact that someone is able to read your work and maybe find a sense of not being alone, that's important.
Right.
And I it's a business here, but I tell people all the time, they'll come at me with a problem, a technical issue or something, and the first thing I always tell them, I was like, in this whole big world, I promise you, we're not the only people with this problem. Right. Let's go and find somebody else who got a problem because their cable can't fit here, or transmitter's doing something because somebody else has that problem. And just knowing that alone, and a lot of these young guys who work here, the light bulb goes off. They're like, yeah, you're probably right. We're not the only ones with the problem. Let's go find it out. But like in a business world, it's very organized, and there's, it's almost databaseable. If you have a problem, you can find somebody else. But a lot of times, issues of the heart and issues of our soul, it's not so easy to find that.
Right. Yeah, that's what I hope to do, is at least give people the opportunity to feel. The job of the writer, right, is to tell the truth.
Yeah.
And so if I'm telling the truth, then I'm hopefully giving somebody kind of like the go ahead, the permission. I'm freeing them up to feel what it is they're feeling, maybe share those feelings with me. And it's obviously not so simple. It's not like, I put these ingredients in a pot, stir it up, and it's a microwave answer. however you put it. But hopefully I'm opening that space up for them to be real and know that I smile all the time, like I smile all the time. But I suffer, I suffer from my experiences, and I'm just like everyone else.
So would you say that you yourself are a work in progress? Because you just said that you suffer and all these other things, and so clearly you're working on yourself.
Yeah, but it's the human condition that we're here, and we experience a variety of emotions. So I don't know if I'm a work in progress or if I'm just here, and that's good enough.
Right. Yeah, it's important these days that people realize it's so. And sometimes it's okay not to be okay, and it's okay to just be here. That I tell people sometimes I'm just happy to be here in the morning. Guys be like, "Oh, you good, man? I'm just happy to be here, fam."
Right.
Talk about the space as a black woman, as a black poet. What's that like here in Seattle as opposed to maybe other places?
Yeah.
Or opportunities here.
Yeah.
Are you is the black woman poet taking it seriously as maybe others?
Well, I'm a light-skinned black poet, so I may have a little bit of a privilege on that end, but even within that, I still am not heard in the same way as maybe a white poet. On the scene of the slam, when it was a really thriving thing here in Seattle, Seattle Poetry Slam, I would make it to the final stage, but my art was too black. I talked about race too much, and to a mostly white audience, that was they couldn't connect. There was a barrier there for them, for me to talk about pain, experiences that I have or that I see. And so, but that's sort of in the past. Now there's a little bit of a space opening up where people are like, oh, we want to know how you feel. We want to hear from you, But I like to add, I'm a light-skinned person, and that we do have colorism, even within our own society as black people, and that's always there.
No, I'm just sitting here because it's like it's crazy when you talk about like colorism and people used to flame me. They'd be like, oh, you've only got light skinned women on your show and this and that. And I'm like, first of all, straight out of holidays, right? It's right here next to me. But they were talking about guests. They were like, and for me, it's not calculating like that. I'm like, well, man, this is just the person who leads this organization. What do you want me to do? Right. But I didn't realize that even within like our community, that's real. And it wasn't until it impacted me. And I was just like, damn, because, little O and Acacia, she's both, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And my son is much darker than my daughter, you know what I'm saying? And, both my kids, same mom, same dad, one's lighter, one's dark. But for me, I just love them the same. And so it's not until someone else points that out that I even think about that. Yeah. But, that's something that's real.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just thinking in my mind about some of the more famous authors, the female authors who've been known. It's not that and this is not to discredit, because these are, especially now, ancestors like Toni Morrison, light-skinned, Maya Angelou, light-skinned. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and then, I don't know, it's just something to think about. I don't.
But is that a burden that you carry, or is that just something that kind of always sits in the back of your mind?
It's not a burden. I probably think I'm more dark-skinned than I really am in my mind. So I think that might be a little bit of a delusion. But when I say that, I'm saying, I care about black people, care about our struggle as people, and explaining like my father's situation. Of course, I'm the way I am because I came from somebody who was literally raised by somebody who was enslaved. So I might not look as, you know, I might not be dark skinned, but that experience from my father is a huge part of my identity. And my mom is white. So then there's all that.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, does that how does that play in though, and how does that play into your poetry?
Well, for me, I just have a weird experience. Like I said, maybe a little bit of delusion. But my mom and I will still talk about. She's 81 now, but we will still talk about how I used to wake up in the morning and be like, I have a black mom and a black dad somewhere else, and they're waiting for me. This is like a whole family, and she just was like, okay, that was, she saw that that was important to me. So I guess, again, I want to say delusion because it's not true, but she always continued to make sure that part of me felt nurtured, and it's not a part of me as much as it is who I am, because people don't see me as a white woman. Like, I have a white mom. There's a big difference,
So there's a lot of blackness in your poetry as well?
I think there's some. I think that I speak from my perspective as a black woman. I don't know if I would say there's a lot of blackness in it, but I think that I like to pay homage to black authors. I like to speak about my experience in my body as a black person, and speak to what I see happening to black people. But I don't know if I would say there's a lot of blackness. I don't know. There's definitely some blacker poetry than mine.
Yeah, well, you get what I'm saying. Poetry scene. Listen, all the poets are gonna try to flame me after this. Take a deep breath.
It's good.
You know what I'm saying? But the stereotypical, like, well, it's just black, and black, and then black, and you be like, man, that was hella black.
Right.
That's more like what I'm saying.
Well, just to go back to that question though, like, I know which pieces are appropriate when I'm in front of a white audience that can't, but I'll still do the ones that I know will scare them and make them uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. But then I know that there are some poems that I might do in front of an all black audience that I can do for white people and they will love. Then black people will just stare at me like.
Yeah.
So,
well, you bring up some important things though.
Yeah.
One, how important is it to make your audience uncomfortable? Mm. And two, how important is it to be able to do stuff in a sacred space? Because sometimes even with us, we be wanting to huddle, and we know that if we just around community, so to speak, then it's something that's special, it's something that's whatever. And how important is that in your art? But first of all, how important is it to make people feel uncomfortable? And not in a malicious way, but in an enlightening way. Yeah. Maybe a little malicious, I see.
Yeah, it's not malicious, but it's definitely, I like to challenge the level of comfort that people have, especially a white audience. Like I'll sometimes look certain people in the eye to like, do you see what I'm saying? Because I also teach, right? So I have that teacher part of me that's like gives the look of, are you paying attention right now? So I can grab a hold of someone who I think might not really want to hear what I'm saying. So that is important. I like that. I see it as a kind of a grounding experience, but it's not the same kind of grounding experience you have when you're with people that you feel that are family, that where you feel held, or you feel like if I do say something that they have my back. They're not gonna tell me, because I've had white spaces here say, oh, we don't want you to get too political, just something more lighthearted, and I'll still do the political thing because I don't care. Because you're not going to stop me from doing the thing that feels right. And if they don't invite me back, they don't invite me back. That's fine. but there's nothing like being held by your people, and you feel confident in knowing you can embody all that you truly are and deliver and perform a piece. There's nothing like that.
Yeah, I did a lot of interviews over the last 1 year, 1.5 years, from more major broadcasters all the way to the BBC in the UK, Sky News, CBC in Canada, South America, all kinds of stations here, nationally, NBC, ABC. But it wasn't until the Seattle Association of Black Journalists and Joyce Taylor came to our studio. And still, that's one of the highlight interviews, you know what I'm saying, of definitely the last few years, because it was for us. This is the Black journalist, and here's Joyce Taylor in our studio. We ain't never cleaned the studio so much. Everybody was on clean up there. We said, Joyce Taylor's coming. Right. But I've never felt so free in an interview to be, like I said, right there in our space with Joyce Taylor talking to a Black audience. It was just very liberating, and it was real special. No matter what I do since then, you can't duplicate that sense,
Right. Yeah, it's a powerful. It's like being home. It's a feeling of home, and personally, I just feel freed up. Like, don't say nothing to me type of mentality, because they're holding me.
Well, let me ask you this then. How important is that space and the frequency of that space and everything else? I saw on your Instagram there where you did a shoot at Wanawari. And Wanawari, people know that's like one of those spaces. How important is that space to you and even to community?
And ain't your smile sharp enough to break sorrow or mend a best friend? How aloe plants do wet and ugly scars. And ain't your life like Mia's, ripped and torn from your family at the train station? Like Black women's bodies ain't worth nothing unless they're for pleasure or bitter pain. To good old America's bursting guts and ornate belts. Are our minds any less goddess than Nefertiti?
Well, Wanawari individually itself, to me, was extremely important because I wanted to be somewhere where I felt that feeling of I'm held. Like, I maybe showed up there knowing that some stereotypical stuff was good, but it was our people, and we could talk and chill and hang out before we actually performed, and it didn't feel fake or contrived or like I had to be extra careful about what might be happening. It felt good to me. And so to me, those spaces are living, breathing, almost entities where we have to go and we have to be able to have as Black people. And like this, right? Like this space, I was like, you already know, like I said, I was extremely and still am excited to be here. I've being able to sit down and know this is you, right? This is us. There's nothing like that. We have to have that connectedness and feel that sense of belonging so that it's not a matter anymore to me of like, oh, people can see that you do that. It's a matter of, no, we're just doing it because we can. Period. There's that's it, and we're here. So now what?
Yeah, I like that. I like how these days one of the main things people are saying is like, yeah, we're kind of not like asking for space. We're just taking space.
Yeah.
It's like, it's necessary though. In some cases, I think that one thing that we've seen, especially here in Seattle in the last year, things have been occurring for sure, but people are just recognizing that there is a specialness about Black space, and wanting to be in a Black space doesn't make you anti anybody, and that's also a burden that I think that oftentimes we carry. It's like, if you want to be in a Black space, then you're anti whatever, but there's lots of cultures who 100% they just want to hang out with a lived experience.
White people do it all the time.
Yeah, and Asian people.
Yeah.
But when it comes to us and it's like a black space, then all of a sudden there's a negative about it or connotation about it. There's absolutely nothing wrong with black people just wanting to be around other black people.
Right. I think it's threatening. Just to tie it back into like the writing world. Like Toni Morrison says, that I'm not going to quote it directly, but the job of the person who's free is to free somebody else. And when we plant ourselves, we stand and we plant ourselves and ground ourselves just on our own. There is some of that I'm showing you, but there's like a natural thing that happens to me. From what I'm learning about trauma, it's a natural thing that happens to your body, of that sense of groundedness that we need as a people. We need to feel at ease, we need to feel comfortable. We walk around all day putting on a voice for somebody else, or making sure that we're safe doing X, Y, and Z, and so we have to have these sacred spaces for ourselves. And if somebody else wants to be mad at that, then I'm good with be mad, right?
Go ahead, be mad. Be all right. So what was the catalyst for you to go from writing poetry to saying like, yo, I'm gonna put this collection together, publish this book?
Well, I had been wanting to do it for a very, very long time, but some of like my other poetry people in the community, Ebo Barton and Ben Israel, who do Alchemy Poetry Series, the two of them were planning on writing books. And they were like, are you gonna do yours? Because we've been doing poetry for so long together. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to. And then I was like, I don't know if I'm really going to, because there's something about, well, first there's the accountability piece. You tell somebody else you're gonna do something, then you're held to it, but they're standard and they're looking at you, right? You have to be in the same room with them and have them look at you like, are you doing the thing you're saying you're gonna do? But then they both finished theirs, and then it was like, okay, this is something I've been wanting to do for a really long time. And then I just pushed forth and did it because I felt like it was important.
Was this you on the cover?
Yeah. Yeah, that's me.
All water has perfect memory.
Mm-hmm.
Explain the title.
So it is from Toni Morrison, from a quote that she has about the Mississippi River. She says that sometimes the Mississippi River floods, but it's not actually flooding. Flood is the word that people use to describe what's happening, that the river is actually remembering, that it's remembering where it was and the places that it's run through, and that's what writers do. Writers remember and ground you in space and time, and basically are people who hold on to our history. And so I wanted to be able to do that. I wanted to follow in her path, somebody that I really look up to, and she's an ancestor, so that felt right for this book. I also just love water, so there's some elements of that throughout the book. And
so something a lot of people don't know about me is actually I have a degree in geology and a minor in environmental science.
oh my gosh.
Yeah, and so when they talk about water, so in the geology world, so we got a few things.
Yeah.
One, the water always follows a path of least resistance. And when you think about that, when water meets an obstruction, if it's rolling, then it goes around, right? And water will always find its level. There's my water comments here. Who were some of your other inspirations, other poets you look up to?
Jessica Care Moore. She was the first spoken word artist to win the Apollo. I don't know if you remember her in the 90s. Now she's just she does everything. I mean, she has her own publishing company. She's a Detroit native. She's the poet there that people look to. You know, James Baldwin, because he is such an amazing, beautiful writer. You know, you fall into his pages, and he's the one who I think about when I think about telling the truth, because that's what he said, is you have to tell the bitter, sweet truth. Who else? I mean, students that I've had the chance to work with, all of them. And I mean, the list goes on and on, but I also, I mean, I grew up and I was born in the 80s and raised in the 90s, so there's always like hip hop that has influenced me, mostly because I just listened to what my brothers were playing. But I know sometimes maybe people feel like he's controversial, but Talib Kweli was somebody that I really loved for a long time. And his cadence and his style and his lyricism, and then Lauryn Hill, you can't really go wrong with.
You got a nice eclectic playlist there.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
We're getting Talib Kweli some play around here too. The show goes on, man. So what can people expect in this book?
I think expect some discomfort, expect a little bit of joy, and as we've been talking about it, especially some trauma, but expect to feel something. And in this version of the book, I actually have a place for people to write their own work, and so expect to do your own work.
Yeah, I'm whatchamacallit. We make light of it here, and as time goes on, it's a bit it's easier to deal with, I guess. But like all of us here at Converge, we experienced so much trauma last year, up close and personal. Mm-hmm. Whether on the police side of things, where you know the gas, the rubber bullets, the batons, the mace, all the way to, you know, I mean, there were 3 murders. Being there on the freeway, like it's a lot, and we ain't never stopped. You know, it's a lot of people who are involved in a lot of stuff. And last year, hey, I'm gonna take a month off, or I'm doing this and that, and we've just never stopped. And I think part of it is that it's important. I think it's, you know, it's consistency. We're a new business. Well, we're not new, but this format of what we're doing is relatively new now. Like our morning show. But then the other part of it is like, I don't even know probably how to deal with all of this. You know, it comes out though every once in a while on air. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And it come out, we'll be talking about something or anything else, and it come out usually in tears. You know what I'm saying, on air, and we remember some of these things, and I can't even watch the footage, and I be sitting there thinking like, you was out there with that? What was wrong with you? Why did you take your ass home? And the whole point, but kind of what I'm getting at, is that it's like, I can't wait until I'm okay so I can read your book. Because I think if I read it now, who knows though? It might be therapeutic for me.
It could be.
But
it could be you just need to hold on and wait for a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, but the thing is you're right in the sense that we're all carrying something, and we're fortunate. Some people were fortunate enough to be able to get through things sometimes faster than others, and sometimes you're able to get through it by yourself. Sometimes it takes you going to a therapist. Sometimes it's reading a book, words.
Yeah.
Where someone's like, yo, they get me.
Yeah, and sometimes, I mean, I think I think we have this misunderstanding too, that we're supposed to get through it. What does that even mean, right? Like, what does it mean to get through a death?
You know, now this is something interesting, because I'm glad we're having this conversation.
Yeah.
I know it's about you, but can I share something?
What do you mean? Of course.
You know,
It's not about me, it's about us.
what's about, there you go.
And that's what my book is about, us too.
Is that one of the things I always tell these guys here is, and I tell my kids and stuff, is I was like, be in this moment. You know, sometimes we tell people, man, well, you need to be strong, you need to be whatever. And every once in a while it'll happen here, and Curtis over there will tell you sometimes, and I'll just be like, you know what? Today is just all bad. But you know, I'm gonna own it, I'm gonna get through it, and then I'm gonna hope for a better tomorrow, as opposed to like back in the day, but man, I'm gonna compensate for this or that. Or when my kids are feeling something, I'd be like, man, it's okay. Be sad. Know that you're not gonna stay sad, but definitely in this moment, while you're feeling this, it's okay to feel it.
Yeah.
We don't have to be like, oh, well, you know, you got to be strong for this and that. I found out that I'd be stronger, actually, you know what I'm saying, being in my emotions,
Yeah.
or however I'm feeling at that time, and then knowing that in dealing or feeling however I'm gonna feel, that there is light at the end of the tunnel, as opposed to not dealing with something and you just never know when it's gonna pop up on you.
Yeah. I think it's just a very, I mean, I know it sounds cliche, but it's a very white supremacist way of dealing with our emotions. You know, if we think about us, like, as Black people being forced to endure,
Right.
and forced to push through even when we're struggling and in pain, and for people to put that pressure on us.
Right.
But we all do it. It's we're taught.
I mean,
to.
part of it, like, it's generational.
Yeah.
And those are one of those generational. It's definitely not a curse, because you know what? It was a coping mechanism for generations above us to get through it. Hey man, you ain't gonna whine about it. You won't have to get through this and that. But somewhere in it, we gotta be able to teach a better way to, you know, one, to ourselves, try to reprogram, but definitely to our children.
Yeah.
But the some of those mechanisms that had good intentions, you know, they're also self-destructive outcomes in it as well.
We unlearning that, I think, is what, for lack of a better phrase, is what will get us through it. Is unlearning the negative and toxic ways we've been taught to deal with pain or even happiness. You know, to deal with, we assume we're supposed to get to happy all the time, but we can't experience that without experiencing pain. We wouldn't know the difference between the two, right? So sadness is just a part of this life. These are our lives we're talking about. That's why, like, I mean, I literally, when I say that my book is about us, it's not about, the book is really not, I mean, yes, it's about my writing, but it's actually about us being freed up and being able to be ourselves wholly, you know? Being able to well, who cares if we sit here and a tear falls, you know what I mean? Like, I know we'll still probably fight it back a little bit, but are we not whole people? You know, have we not even gotten to the point where we can accept our own wholeness as people, as Black people especially? Are we not there yet? You know, like, bearing my truth, telling people is like, yes, I've been through something. Who has not, you know? I have a tattoo right here of my daughter just lost her brother. This is and it's very, very fresh. And Lorenzo, who died in the chop, I taught poetry to him at Lake Ridge Park, South Seattle. Summer went to Nova High School. Like, we are always losing people, and we live in a chaotic place. How is it healthy to pretend like we're okay all the time? What good does that do for us? You know, if we can never really truly experience the pain that we have that's in us, it literally finds a place in your body to go and store itself. Trauma will go into it will find a place in your body if we don't learn to work through it, and that makes for an unhealthy body, right? But spiritually and emotionally, we have to learn to work through things, and not to get over them or just get through them, but to let them be there and feel we're feeling people. We don't come from a people that haven't already done this, you know? You know, that didn't already have their own rituals. For you go to an East African funeral, I'm sure you probably have at least heard of one or seen people come together in a room and they cry, they wail, and they do it for weeks sometimes. You know, we have this weird mentality where it's like, oh yeah, I'm going back to work tomorrow because I can't waste time. It's not real.
So
it's not real good, maybe.
I'm gonna tell you something, blow your mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, I spent half of my career on the continent of Africa.
Really?
I lived in Tanzania, Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi, Botswana, South Africa, Nigeria. I've been 26 African countries.
Wow.
60 countries.
I'm so jealous.
60 countries all together. You know, so me and my son were, I guess it was last year now. So me and my son, we were in East Africa, in Tanzania, and over in Zanzibar, and Kenya. And me and my daughter were in West Africa. We went over to Nigeria. Wow. And so when you talk about a history as long as time of being able, well, it's very much different in the way that people grieve and understand grief and understand tragedy and get over tragedy and everything else in different parts of the world, for sure. Yeah,
the United States is a baby. It's a baby trying to tell the rest of the world how to act, you know? Like a spoiled baby, actually. Spoiled something. Maybe not baby. Babies can't really be spoiled, but you know, like a spoiled kid. Just we believe in some of those philosophies that I don't think support our mental health and physical health.
Wow. It's crazy because it's like, you really are a teacher. I mean, and that's not even just like, you know, it's a rhetoric kind of way. I mean, it's really kind of dope.
Thank you.
Because I've met a lot of poets who are very, very skilled in their craft, and this isn't a negative, but they're not a teacher as well. Mm-hmm. It's crazy because you can just talk, right? And it's like, oh yeah, by the way, I also do poetry. I mean, I think that you're very skilled at explaining these things.
Thank you so much.
And explaining how you feel about things. I mean, you sit here and learn from me.
I mean, I'm learning from you. It's an exchange, right? And that's not, I accept that. I thank you for that. But that as a teacher is one of my things too. It's like, I'm not actually teaching. We're in this, we're figuring this out together. I knew this is going to be dope.
How can people find the book?
So, I do not sell my book on Amazon. I sell it on my website only. You can find it at ChelseyRichardson.org. That's CHELSEY Richardson.org. It is also at some local libraries. You can pick it up at Station Coffee Shop and hopefully in more independent bookstores soon.
All right, good stuff. Chelsey?
Yes, Omari.
Thank you for taking the time to join us.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, are you gonna come back?
Oh yeah, definitely.
All right, good stuff. All right, guys, another episode of Off the Clock in the books. We'll see you again next week. And so now, before we let you go, do you feel comfortable you know what I'm saying, saying a few verses or anything
Oh,
like
yeah.
that? Okay.
Oh, yeah,
So
sure.
that's just gonna be you in the camera, and then in the final edit, so like in the beginning of the episode, we're gonna take some of that and we'll be like doing
Okay.
the thing, and we'll mix it
Okay.
up or whatever. However long, whatever you want to say.
Okay.
Right there.
All right. I'm sitting on a stool inside of Safeway right across the street from Rainier and Henderson, staring down aisle 12. There are 4 items displayed that I can pick up and walk out with if I have just enough change. Greeting cards, digestive help, pain relief, and cough and cold. I assume I can find some relief for my newfound back pain, maybe some Tums or Imodium to ease my lactose intolerance, but I don't think I'll find a card that I like. Nor will I find a card that will ease the suffering Trayvon Martin's mother feels while she lies awake at night. The sound of racial slurs murmured in the folds of her sheets, the kind that rise and fall in her chest, growing into a chaotic mantra on television screens across the US. And I hope I don't find that race card sitting there on that colorful shelf, waiting to commit a suicidal dive into my hands. There is not a card that embodies all truth, so please don't go long and throw it in my face. There's a boy standing next to me, brown leaf dusted skin, mild in manner. I ear hustle, hear him say he's a mama's boy, flowers his lips on his mother's cheeks before he leaves, kind of mama's boy. He admits his parents are his perfect roommates, and that is why he will never leave the garden. I can't help but wonder if there is a bullet waiting for him somewhere. A pointer finger hiccuping on a trigger, itching for an echo in our ears, pulling our skin more and more distant from each other. The truth is, we need help. We need someone standing on every urban, suburban, inner city corner, passing out words that are life jackets, possibly in novel form, the prologue written to self-appointed neighborhood watchmen and the police. The first line would read, "Stop. You are pointing your gun at a figment of your imagination. Not all Black people are monsters. Some of them flower their lips on their mother's cheeks before they leave. Some of them make perfect roommates. Police, tuck away your polymer toys. We all know that you hold in your holsters the kind of heavy metal that really kills kids. I am not against guns. I am just pro second chances. And I have nothing to give these mothers because blood is not a handkerchief. And I'm just sitting on a stool inside of Safeway, right across the street from Rainier and Henderson, staring down aisle 12. Come find me.